I want to talk a little bit about Anarchy in the arena and the community response to this match. Man, okay, so in my review for Double or Nothing, I talked about how there are things I liked about the match, and the match was fun overall, but there are things where they went too far, right? I had a very nuanced opinion in the sense of there are spots in that match that could have, there was like 7 or 8 spots that could have been the finish, and it just kept going, you know? And like I said in the review, when you have vehicular assault, a man being set on fire, a chair that has like a firework attached to it, you know, a glove with tacks, like all that stuff, I thought that it just did too much. I thought they did too much, and that's a fair criticism, I think, because, you know, as somebody who's been watching wrestling since, I mean, at this point, 35 years. I've been watching this for 35 years, dude. God, I'm old. Like, there is such thing as just doing too much, and it took me out of the suspension of disbelief. But what's interesting is the community response to this from the wrestling fandom is very, very mixed. I've got people who I'm friends with who love the match. They loved it. They thought it was fun, wacky. They enjoyed themselves. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I want people to watch wrestling and enjoy themselves. I can only imagine that being there live might have been even more fun, because I've been to a lot of wrestling shows where they have like brawls in the crowd and shit, and it's fun. It's genuinely a fun time. But on the other side of the equation, there are people who absolutely despise the match. I have seen people say that they're done with AEW. I've seen people say that it was a disgrace to the wrestling business. And obviously a lot of these fans are probably more old school, probably skew a bit older, or a lot of them may be WWE people who just are used to that style of wrestling, even though WWE does brawls too. Not quite like how AEW does them. But I've seen people like freaking completely bash the match. I mean, like, just shitting on everything. I've actually seen people say that it was the most embarrassing thing in the history of wrestling, and that it is an embarrassment to the business, and it makes AEW look like a clown show. And I don't agree with that extreme. I don't agree with that total extreme, right? Because there was plenty of other things on Double or Nothing that don't make AEW look like a clown show. Like, for example, the rest of the matches. Like, you know, the world title match, for one. Or the Will Ospreay-Roderick match. Totally different style. And to be honest, I lean more towards watching that type of wrestling than I do the brawls. Even though I love me a good brawl. But people are super, super emotional. Now, here's the thing. While I understand the people that like the match, I also understand people that don't, because I was thinking about it, and in my head, as I'm watching it, I was like, are they going too far? And when I thought about it, the answer is yeah. And I made jokes. I was making jokes like, are they going to pull out a shotgun and, you know, fire it on somebody's face next year? Like, how are they going to top this? I felt like a lot of the ideas. See, what happened here is you've got 8 guys. A lot of them care about their craft. Guys like Okada, Danielson, you know, they care about their matches, right? And so they have all these ideas. And because Tony Khan has a different mentality when it comes to wrestling, he's not saying, okay, guys, let's reel it back a little bit. Let's just do half of that stuff, right? A bit more, you know, lax, and say, let's save some of those ideas for next year. It felt like they crammed in so many ideas, right? Like, and I'm not saying they were all terrible ideas. I think a couple of them were bad. You know, the blowtorch thing was just over the top. I didn't hate it because I've seen Inferno matches, but it was so over the top that should have been the finish. That should have been the finish. I loved the Okada Super Rainmaker with the tacks. I love that. The Reeboks with the tacks. You know, they did something like that last year. But the point is, I do understand people that are hating on the match too. This is a very strange wrestling match to me, and because of the reaction. And the last time I remember something like this was Full Gear 2019. Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega. There are things about that match that I loved, right? But I remember when it ended, I told myself, I said, they should probably not wrestle again for a very long time. And in AEW's defense, it was almost a year, because I think their next match was at Winter is Coming 2020 when Kenny went heel. So, but you know what I'm saying? Like, these types of matches are like the finale of the finale. You know what I mean? Like, because it's so much. They put so much into it that you're just not going to be able to do anything beyond that. And I feel like all of Mox and Kenny's matches, even though they've had better pro wrestling matches, you know, actual competitive in-ring wrestling matches that tell stories, it's not going to be as spectacular or as over the top as that first one. And that's how I felt. And let's not forget that that match did a lot of damage to Kenny's body because he was hurt for a while. The dude was hurt throughout most of 2020 and 2021. Remember, he took a big break when he dropped the title to Hangman. So these matches take their toll. Now, I hope nobody from the match was hurt, obviously. But I was thinking about this, and it's like, you know what? Like, people do have a point about this. I thought about this, for instance. Like, if I'm watching this match in my living room, right, and somebody comes over who has never watched wrestling in their life, and they look at this match and they go, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like, people are going to look at that who don't know anything about wrestling and say, this is what you're into? What kind of trash is this? That's true, though. I mean, I could imagine people saying that. And this is not something that AEW is like the only company guilty of. I can't even tell you how many times I was embarrassed to be a wrestling fan because of shit that WWE and Vince McMahon did. Like, for example, the Dr. Heine skits. Oh God, that has new context now after what's come out about him. The stuff that, some of those segments on Raw that were just cringe. Remember when they had the guest general managers and some of them were just this, like, oh my God, dude, that episode with Jeremy Piven and Dr. Ken of Raw is like historically terrible. Like, there's been so many times where I've looked at wrestling and been like, I can't tell a girl that I'm into this, yo. I can't. Like, I'm so embarrassed. And there's been other times where I've been like, you know, I'll bet if I take them to a show and I show them this, they would probably get into it. You know, like, there's been so many times where I felt both ways. And this one match encompasses so many different opinions. I just can't remember a match. Like I said, the last time I remember something like this was, you know, Kenny and Mox. And the thing about Kenny and Mox is that was just a month after that horrible Hell in a Cell with Seth Rollins and The Fiend. Maybe the worst finish in company history, right? And I remember that was embarrassing. But that's more embarrassing for people who are into wrestling. People who don't know anything about wrestling or Hell in a Cell are just going to think that's goofy. I would assume. But people who were into wrestling hated that match. And so with Anarchy in the Arena, I do think they did too much. And they probably should have saved some of that stuff for next year. You know, that's how, and I know that's how it happened. They had all these ideas, and they were like, screw it, we're going to cram everything in. And it's on the same show that already has a three-way FTW match and the cage match, the barbed wire cage match, which did a lot of super violent stuff. Barbed wire and, you know, Malachi Black with the chains. There was so much. The show had so much. So there you go. It's just really interesting how people's reactions are to this match. And I know that when Meltzer's star ratings come out later this week, bro, it's going to be another civil war in the wrestling fandom because people really care a lot about those star ratings. It is what it is. Anyways, man, those are my thoughts. What did you think about the match? Let me know. And whatever your opinion is, I probably, even if I don't agree with it, I'll probably understand because it's been all over the place with this one.